बाकी आर्ट वेबसाइट पे जाके यूजर के पासवर्ड से लॉगिन करना है, पता है ना? किया गए आप वेबसाइट पे? नहीं गए? वो मैं वेबसाइट पे प्रैक्टिस से देखा है क्या आपने? तो आज आपने देखोगे टिपिकल मॉडल से शीट आएगा तो क्रॉस चेक करना है आपको क्वेश्चन पेपर के साथ और इसमें हो गया वो पोस्ट ऑफ नहीं डाला था ये देखा और कौन है और किसी ने प्रैक्टिस पेपर नहीं देखा नहीं सॉल्व किया तो मुझे समझ नहीं आता है आप ओपन करोगे और सॉल्व नहीं करोगे तो भी पता चलेगा तो सॉल्व करना ही है पता है ना कैसे जाना है? कैसे जाना है?
और डाउनलोड करना है।
कहाँ पे जाना है?
वो जो टेस्ट डाउनलोड टेस्ट है उसको पेज में आ
ऑनलाइन टेस्ट डाउनलोड Good evening. Good evening. Sit. Okay, so what we were studying, we had finished with the chapter on cell division. So anything to clarify? Anything to clarify from the chapter? Did you all go through? So today I start with absorption by roots. Okay, absorption, transpiration, photosynthesis we'll try taking up together, because the other day I had asked you in certain schools it's already done. No? Which school said that all these 3 chapters? Whole crest done, no? Poddar, what about this? Going on or done? And after absorption, what did they start? They did not go to transpiration. No. We'll take, but also you keep me informed about what portion for your first exam. First exam when? July, right?
Yeah. September.
When?
September.
First exam in September?
Yes.
Before that, no exam?
No.
Nothing? Arre? You can say.
They have to finish almost 90% of the syllabus before that, and 10% will be.
They don't take any rotation test, unit test, nothing.
No, class test is there. And every Tuesday is periodic assessment of rotating subjects.
Every Tuesday.
Periodic assessment is of 20 marks, 40 marks?
20.
20 marks.
But in science it is 10, 10, 10. So it's 30 mark paper, but biology will 10 marks.
Achha.
And physics 10 marks.
Some class tests is almost every day.
Not of biology, but
Of every
rotating subjects.
subject.
Class test कैसे?
So 10
Now
marks
it's
or
10 marks,
20
15 marks.
class test.
No, but then proper exam only on September.
Yeah.
Okay. But you keep
Now
preparing.
this periodic assessment is also proper exam. But class test is unofficial.
No, class test is okay. 9th and 10th standard, anytime mock test will be there in the class. Okay, so that means in this periodic test, what are the chapters? Are you aware?
Yeah,
Other schools portion for the first exam, tell me, so that see that you are aware, so that we are finishing the portion on time for that chapter, for those chapters. Now, after structure of chromosomes, let us start with absorption. Absorption, transpiration, always should be done together because the topics are all related topics. You understand much better. So we start with the concept of absorption by roots. Absorption by roots. Absorption by roots, as we start with this chapter, the first part that we try understanding would be the characteristics, that is absorption. Absorption by roots, when we are looking into, I may think of a plant, and this plant has got the roots. What are some special features we are trying to understand of the roots which allow the process of absorption possible? I talk about the plant which has got the stem, and now, yes, sometimes it is also possible that the water level is somewhere till here, talking about irrigation or etc. But then, can I tell you right now that the water can be absorbed by the way of the stem? No, the water is never absorbed by the way of the stem. There are some special features when I talk about the root. The entire root has got some specialized types of cells and typical characteristics of the cells which allow the absorption of the water. So the water absorption in a plant is only by this method. What is the reason? The reason is when we talk about these extensions of the root, meaning talk about this in a magnified manner, we may come across that every particular plant would have its main root. The main root would have a number of some lateral roots, and from every lateral root a large number of fine hair-like structures would start developing, and this is what is known as the root hairs. So now, when we are talking about every particular plant, let it be a herb, let it be a shrub or a tree, the three major features would be, this is the main body of the root. Then there will be a large number of lateral roots like this, and then a large number of root hairs. So we are talking about the root hairs right now to understand the process of absorption. Talking about the root hairs to understand the process of absorption, but first of all, why should the plant take in so much of water by the way of the root hairs? Why should the plants take in so much of water by the way of the root hairs? Number one, because the plant cells have to undergo some specific processes, vital processes known as photosynthesis. The plant cells, why should the plants take in so much of water by the way of these root hairs, root cells? Because the plants, the upper part of the plant require water in the form or require water as a raw material for the process. So I may understand that this entire upper part of the plant is in need of water to undergo the process of photosynthesis. What else? The process of transpiration has to happen, but the moment I talk about transpiration, we are also understanding that connecting the roots and the upper parts of the plant, there are some tissues involved. I talk about the roots and connecting the roots to the upper parts of the plant. And which type of tissues am I thinking of right now? Maybe I am talking about a type of a vascular tissue. And this vascular tissue that I am talking about right now is the xylem. This xylem tissues which connect the root to the upper parts of the plant is always filled with water molecules. So now I understand that this xylem tissues which is connecting the root and the stem and the upper parts of the plant, and then if I follow the root cells, there are a huge number of the root cells which are connected to the xylem. Maybe now this is what I consider as the root cells. We will understand the process. Since it is a plant cell, the presence of a vacuole inside, a large big vacuole, is a must. So I start this way that why should the plants absorb so much of water by the way of the root hairs? To carry out processes like photosynthesis where water is a major raw material. To show the excess amount of water loss, a process known as transpiration. So definitely in the entire xylem tube, we always understand in the entire xylem tube, there is a whole lot of water filled in. The entire xylem tube, if I talk about in the entire xylem tube, water is always filled in the form of a column. This entire xylem tube is filled with water, and water in a column again, not single molecules of water ever. So now the loss of water in the form of water vapor, that is what I am talking about as transpiration. But the moment I talk about transpiration, something more that the plant will enjoy is distribution or say transportation. Transportation of what? Transportation of minerals, transportation of food. So I am talking about transpiration. I just now said that why should the plant absorb water? The plant will have to absorb water because the plant is losing water by transpiration. The plant is losing water by transpiration. Whatever it loses, that much has to be filled in. Yes, that's why absorption. But whatever the loss and whatever it fills in this process, what else is also the benefit for a plant is the distribution of the water and the minerals constantly happening. If the process of transpiration stops, the distribution of the water, minerals, food, everything stops. So what is the other function? What did I mention? Why plants should take in a lot of water? Photosynthesis, transpiration, transportation. This is very much related to this. And one more point to remember is, if I talk about the plant parts, if the soil is well watered, we get to see that the leaves on the green stem would be all erect. The leaves are all fresh and crisp. The soil has less water. Maybe in the afternoon nowadays, if you observe, those of you who have potted plants at home, you may just have a look, that in the afternoon, what happens? The soil is getting dry. Is the crispness of the leaf there? No, the leaf is wrinkling, wilting. So the leaf cells are releasing so much of water, losing so much of water. So can we say that to maintain the stiffness of the plant parts, mechanical support or the mechanical stiffness, rigidity to the plant parts, rigidity to plant parts and the stiffness to the plant parts. For this also the plant should have adequate amount of water. For this also the plant should have adequate amount of water. Why should the plant absorb water? Now, if this is what, why should the plant absorb water? Now we try understanding. Just now I started with this. I said, if I have a potted plant at home and I'm watering the plant, then the soil is having so much of water above the surface, so the stem is also in contact with water. Can I say that the stem is also absorbing water? No, the stem will not directly absorb water. Then how is the plant getting the water? By the way of the root cells only. By the way of the root cells only. Then what are some specialized features of the root cell which is enabling the process of absorption possible? I may think of some of these root cells. I may think of a feature something like this. When I talk about a feature something like this, I understand that each of these cells, they are all extensions of a type of a cell. And what are these cells known as? These cells of the leaf that we are talking about, the roots that we are talking about, these are epidermal cells. Which cells am I talking about? One particular cell from this root lateral structure, the lateral root. Every single lateral root will have hundreds of root hairs. And what are these cells? All these cells are made up of epidermal cells. They are epidermal in nature. The moment I draw one root hair cell, this is one root hair cell I am drawing. So how would this structure look like? This is what we are drawing here. How would this structure look like? It is a single root hair cell. And yes, they are in an arrangement. They will be in an arrangement all throughout. If it is a plant cell, then what will be some of its parts? It should be having the cell wall. It should be having the cell membrane. Then what else? Cytoplasm, yes. What about the nucleus? Yes. So it will very much, now this labeling of this you get, labeling of this diagram, very common in your paper. Labeling of this diagram, and children sometimes get confused with certain parts. So definitely I'm telling you, please draw a rough diagram with pencil. Draw the diagram parts, very simple, but still children make a mistake there. So now that I talk about that, this is a plant cell I'm talking about. So what are some of the features? What will you label this as?
Cell wall.
What will you label this as?
Cell membrane.
What will you label this as?
Cytoplasm.
And this?
Nucleus.
and this. Okay, and what will you label this as? This, okay, or let me put it this way. What will you label this as? Epidermal cells. These are the epidermal cells. So this entire cell is an epidermal cell. I am trying to show you how does a root hair cell look like. How does a root hair cell look like? And it is a plant cell. Definitely the parts will be same like a plant cell that we had studied in the 9th standard. Cell wall, label all these parts in your figure. Cell wall. Root hair. So this is the root hair. Label all these parts. So now we are talking about the root hair. This is the nucleus, and then this is the cell membrane. This is the cell membrane.
Cell wall.
And up there, cell wall. And the cytoplasm. The vacuole also will have to be marked. So we are talking about the vacuole here. And we talk about this has to be termed as the epidermal cell. This is the epidermal cell. The root hair cell is always an extension of the epidermal cell. So this feature to always remember. Now we try understanding that why absorption at this level? Why not here? That is a question. Why absorption at this level? Absorption at this level meaning the root hair cells should be having some specialized features. So what are some specialized features of the root hair cells? Number one, if I talk about the root hair cells, the root hairs are spread out. From every single lateral root, hundreds of root hair cells, hundreds of root hairs. So that means if I talk about a shrub also, it has got hundreds of lateral roots and even more of the root hair cells. So can we talk about the large surface area? And
14 billion.
Yes?
14 billion.
Many, yes. So when we are talking about millions actually, when we are talking about the rough number, they are in millions. The root hair cells for any shrub, they are in millions. So talk about the big tall trees. So when we are talking about what is one special feature of the root hair cells or root hairs which enable the process of absorption. Number one, surface area is huge. So that is what we are writing. Large surface area allows enormous absorption of water. Can you say something similar that is there in our body? Large surface area, villi. You had studied last year. Villi, large surface area which allows the absorption of nutrients. And now I am trying to compare large surface area allows absorption of water. Now the second is a very important point to remember. The second that I talk about is that if now I understand that this entire column, what is this tube I am trying to show you? I am saying that this tube is nothing but the xylem tube which is connecting the root and the stem and the branches and the leaves. But now, if a process known as transpiration takes place, for example, a process known as transpiration takes place. So when transpiration takes place, empty space, vacant space gets created in the xylem tube at the level of the leaves. Water has got converted into water vapor lost by the way of stomata. So this is the basic concept of transpiration. But now that this empty space is created, what now next? This entire column of water will move up. Can I say that the water moving individual molecules? No, the entire column of water moves up. What is this property of water molecule remaining together known as? This is what is known as cohesion. Why am I saying that the water the entire column of water is moving up? Is that true? Yes, the entire column of water always moves up. So if now this entire column of water is again replacing that empty space or filling up that empty space, definitely there will be a vacant space here then. There will be a vacant space here where at the level of the roots. There will be a vacant space here at the level of the roots. But why is this column of water rising up? Because water molecules always remain together. What is this property of water molecule clinging to each other known as cohesion? What is the other reason why the water molecule or the trail and the column does not break? What is the other reason that the column does not break? The other reason is every water molecule remains attached to the wall of the xylem. Adhesion. Every water molecule will remain attached to the wall of the xylem. Is everybody clear with what I am speaking? This entire xylem tube, when I draw, what is the difference between adhesion and cohesion? This is adhesion. The water molecule remaining attached to the wall, this is adhesion. This is adhesion, and what about this? This is cohesion. Are you clear? So these are the two reasons why the water column always will move up. So I am speaking on that large surface area, and what is the next? Next is trying to understand that what should happen to this. Okay, now that there is water loss in the form of transpiration, I told you just now, when there is water loss, there is an empty space created. Will this empty space remain as it is? No, the entire column goes up. The moment the entire column goes up, what will happen? Empty space here now. तो ये empty space कैसे fill होने वाला है? This empty space will be filled when the water from this cell goes here and fills in. So abhi water from this cell will go and fill in this empty space. तो अभी क्वेश्चन ये है कि how will the water here enter? How will the water here enter? Since this cell is constantly giving away water, so the sap here, what is this liquid here known as sap? The sap is constantly getting concentrated क्योंकि solutes तो it will stay as it is. The solutes will remain as it is. The water is always given away. So constantly, since the sap is getting concentrated, the inward entry of the water constantly happens. So can I tell you that what is the other reason? Why is the root cells constantly absorbing water? Because the root cells are constantly getting concentrated. The sap of the root cells constantly getting concentrated. Why? Because transpiration is constantly happening. Since transpiration is constantly happening, the sap has to give away water to fill in the gap created in the xylem. So, uske wajah se the sap getting concentrated. So, which is a dilute medium? Every time, is this a dilute medium or the soil is a dilute medium? Tell me. Soil has more water than the cell always. So, what will be the direction of the water movement? Always from here to here? Cell. Soil to cell. Yes, standard hai. Exceptions are there. We'll talk about that later. So soil to cell, this is the direction of the water movement. So what is the next feature that we have to write? What is the next region? Cell sap is hypertonic. Hypertonic and hypotonic का concept याद है? Hypertonic and hypotonic.
Hypertonic means the concentration is larger than the.
नहीं larger नहीं. Larger use नहीं करो.
Is more than the surrounding.
Concentration of.
The concentration of the solution.
अच्छा. Answer my question. समझो and answer. I am talking about this root cell. Surrounding क्या है? Soil, water. All of you try understanding and answer करो so that the concept यहाँ पे ये वाले chapters में सिर्फ concept एक बार समझ जाओ. ज़्यादा पढ़ने की जरूरत नहीं. Now I'm talking about this root hair cell. It is giving away water. बार-बार transpiration हो रहा है, giving away water. So this the sap of the root hair cell is becoming concentrated. When I'm saying it is becoming concentrated, इससे क्या समझ में आ रहा है? This sap is having more water than the soil. The sap is having less water than soil. So solute. More solute than the soil. This is having more solute, less water, concentrated. So the outside, can I write? The soil water is hypotonic. Can I write this? Soil water is hypotonic, लिख सकती हूँ?
Hypotonic is when a lower concentration solution is surrounded by a high concentration.
तो soil water को मैं hypotonic लिख सकती हूँ कि नहीं?
No, but it's not surrounded.
Just I'm comparing, no? ये cell के साथ में soil water को compare कर रही हूँ, and I know that the soil has always more water than the cell. The cell has always more solute than the soil. तो कौन सा dilute environment हो गया? ये dilute हुआ कि ये dilute हुआ?
Soil water.
Soil dilute हुआ. So dilute environment is always a hypotonic medium. Concentrated is always a hypertonic medium. Hypertonicity मतलब क्या? I'm comparing. Hypertonicity is always a relatable. इसमें हमेशा we are comparing two different environment on either side of the cell membrane. Right now the cell membrane. So either side of the cell membrane. अब ये जो plant cell के जो cell membrane है, cell membrane के इस side में I'm talking about this side and this side. Cell membrane के इस side में, that is in the soil, water is more, yes, water is less. Hypertonic, hypotonic. आया समझ में? That's the simplest rule to always remember. So soil water is dilute, sap is concentrated. Soil water is hypotonic as compared to the cell. Cell sap is hypertonic as compared to the soil. ठीक है ना? ये concept आया समझ में? That's why we are always writing cell sap is hypertonic. अब ये जो hypertonic and hypotonic, remember, दो तरह से हम बोल सकते हैं. या तो I talk in terms of water, या तो I talk in terms of solutes. What is the third feature? Third feature ये है that now that I am talking about the movement of the water, movement of the water is always from a hypotonic to a hypertonic. Movement of the water, direction क्या रहेगा? Direction will always be this, from a dilute to a concentrated. From a
have thin walls.
so thin walls to allow the process of diffusion. So right now we are talking about only molecules of water. So osmosis, we are thinking of osmosis because right now we are only talking about water molecules. So now when we are talking about another special feature of the root hairs, what are we studying? We are studying root hair cells के कौन से special features है which is allowing absorption phosphate. तो ये है first feature, large surface area है, तो इसीलिए absorption फटाफट होगा. Cell, inside of the cell हमेशा ही concentrated रहता है, so definitely it will start absorbing water from the surrounding. Hypotonic से hypertonic में हमेशा water जाएगा. Third, cell membranes के special feature. तो cell membrane की special feature क्या है? If I talk about the cell membrane, that is the plasma membrane or the cell membrane. If I talk about, okay, let me use the word cell membrane only.
You said that this was diffusion from lower concentration.
Osmosis. Water जब हम बात कर रहे हैं तो it is only osmosis. Diffusion when I talk about solid, वो बाद में हम active transport में सीखेंगे. So now that I talk about the cell membrane, special feature of the cell membrane क्या था? We had studied in the 9th standard. Write one special feature, semi-permeable. The cell membrane is always semi-permeable. Cell membrane is present in the plant and the animal cells both. हाँ कि ना? नहीं, cell membrane दोनों में ही होता है ना? Cell membrane is present both in the plant and animal cells. अब another feature I want to understand is the cell wall. Cell wall only in the plant cells, and it is freely permeable. Why are we studying this permeable feature? Because we are clear. Because it is a plant cell. तो plant cell में क्या होगा? The cell wall will try taking in everything, but the cell membrane will be acting as a check. No, these molecules are not necessary, not allowed. They're empty. So हमेशा it is like that for the plant cell. The plant cell will not allow entry of every molecule or exit of every molecule, though it has the freely permeable cell wall, because cell membrane always acts as a, as a barrier, as a check always. So these are the three features always you have to remember. This is one of the important part of this chapter. The start of the chapter as we discussed. Write three special features. Straight away भी question आता है and something related to this also you have to remember. So I talk about the cell membrane, cell wall features. They very much help in the process of absorption of the water. Large surface area very much help in the absorption of water. And next is what? We talk about the concentration. ये सबसे important point है because in many other aspects we are going to study this. Many other aspects of the chapter we are going to study this. Now next is this diagram I already told you. Figure 4.2 is very important for you. Now next is we are going to talk about 5 important phenomena related to this concept of absorption. Now, when we are talking about the 5 important phenomena, what are the 5 important phenomena that we come across happening in the plant cells related to different types of absorption? So now, talking about the different type of phenomena, the first that we talk about is imbibition. What is imbibition? Definition and few examples, only that much. So what happened? Pani piyo. Somebody is remembering you. You want to go out? Jana hai? Now, when we are talking about imbibition, what is it? Imbibition, I keep some grams put in water. I keep some grams put in water. The outer coat of the gram dead. Correct? The outer coat of the gram seed is dead. So is that gram seed absorbing water? No, yes. Grams, chane. I take some handful of grams, put it in the water. Wait for some 3-4 hours. What am I absorbing? What am I observing? I observe that the gram seed will start swelling. Huh? Not a problem. Cool. And सब लोग तुम लोग उसकी तरफ क्यों देख रहे हो? And he is becoming even more disturbed. Where's your friend today? इसका holiday शुरू हो गया? Okay, now when I talk about examples of imbibition, what is imbibition? What is the definition? Some examples, let us see. I talk about some examples of imbibition. I just now said take a handful of grams, soak in water. After 3-4 hours, we get to see that yes, a small amount of water has entered. So this gram, the outer seed coat is absolutely dead, but the gram seed is still absorbing water. No? The same thing, if I take these gram seeds and just keep it outside also in the humid environment, now that monsoon day is approaching, keep it outside, not directly put them in water, then also we will get to see that these gram seeds little bit, they will start swelling up, but it will take time, 5-7 days. Something more to talk about imbibition, which is very common examples you come across in your book also mentioned, that is during the monsoon time. What do you get to observe? The door starts swelling up. The cupboard doors doesn't fit, as if they have become swollen up, they have become big. What has happened? Why the cupboard doors and the shelf and the doors, etc., they start swelling up and they would not fit close that properly. Why does that happen? Because the dead layer, the dead tissues, the dead layer, they may also absorb water. So here, when I talk about these plant cells, but the outermost layer of the plant cell is what? Cell wall. The outermost. I'll tell you. So now, in this plant cell, if I now understand that this is one plant cell, let me just talk about this particular plant cell. Not necessarily a root cell right now. I'm talking about any particular plant cell which has got the cell wall and the cell membrane. And this is the vacuole since I'm talking about a plant cell. And I want to understand what is imbibition. Is it the same as absorption or a little bit different? I just gave you certain examples, the swelling up of the wooden planks and the doors and the cupboards, and also absorption of small amount of water by the dead outer covering of the plant parts, like the seed coat and all. So what is happening? In this plant cells which are dead, when the outside of the plant cells, when the outside environment is extremely moist and humid, there is so much of water outside, so much of water vapor outside. So now what will happen? A large number of these water molecules, they will stick on the outer wall, cell wall. That is not addition. Surface attraction, because cell wall loves water molecules, hydrophilic.
So it pulls the water molecule.
Yes, when the pressure is high.
But
So observe now that these water molecules are slowly clinging. Now their concentration increases. अब जब इनकी concentration ज़्यादा हो गया, what will happen? There will be a pulling force from inside. So this water molecules, now that the attraction, now because of the cell wall has got a great affinity for water molecules, the water molecule is attaching. But outside अभी भी बहुत सारा humidity है. So the water molecules are still going and trying, attaching. This is creating a force as if outside there are 10 people trying to enter. So what will happen? एक force के वजह से some will enter. Exactly the same thing happens, but the force is not that big. So ये water molecule starts occupying the space between the cell wall, membrane and the cell wall. Will they fall into the, or can they cross the cytoplasm and go into the cell sac like this process? No, इतना ज़्यादा pressure नहीं है. Freely permeable नहीं है, and on top of that also the pressure is not very big. The pressure is not very high. So what is this process? Absorption of the water by surface attraction. Water molecules are going only because of यही surface attraction. मतलब when the membrane has gathered so much of water, just by that force and pressure of attraction, the water molecule enters, and that's the reason small amount enters, force is negligible. अंदर से कोई प्रेशर खींच नहीं रहा है दिस वाटर मॉलिक्यूल. अब अगर कोई टोनिसिटी होता, concentration है something else, then the pressure from here would have pulled the water molecule. ऐसा कुछ नहीं हो रहा है.
The water molecules are getting pulled on their own.
The water molecules are moving on their own because there is so much here and nothing inside. That's the reason. As I told you, अगर say suppose now outside the door there is a crowd of some 20 children, 25 children, 50 children, what will happen? Inside there is space, but outside they are not allowed. So, वो जो एक pressure की वजह से some of them will enter. So much outside, cell wall has a property of attaching water molecules in large amount. So, because there is a huge concentration of water molecules outside, but अंदर से कोई pull है, is the cell sap absorbing them? No. Cell sap is not absorbing. Remember, these water molecules are not entering the sap at all. Then where are these water molecules moving? The water molecules are moving between the cell wall and the cell membrane. So cell wall and cell membrane say they may again enter into the next cell also. This is how slowly. That's the reason the process is very slow. That is the reason why these water molecules keep on moving from one cell to the other, one part of the dead tissue to the other, and later they will bulge up this membrane because water molecule has accumulated. This is what is the reason why the wooden planks and the doors and the cupboard doors start swelling up. But yes, swelling, does this swelling happen at the month of July? Do we see the swelling and all these processes in the month of July? July में जो बारिश हो रही है, not that time. Maybe at the end of August, September. Already बहुत सारा concentration हो गया, and surrounding the dead cells and the dead parts and the wooden plank, concentration इतना ज़्यादा हो गया that the pressure is so much built up that they start entering. Imbibitional force. That is what is called imbibitional force. Then what is the definition of imbibition? You should write. Imbibition is the Absorption of water molecule by surface attraction. What is the definition? Absorption of water molecules by the dead cells, plant tissues by surface attraction. What are the features? How is it different from osmosis? We are talking about absorption of the water molecules. How is it different from osmosis? The water molecule will remain between the cell wall and the cell membrane. The water will not enter the cytoplasm or the cell sac. The water will travel from cell wall to cell membrane only. In this space only they will keep traveling from one cell to the other. Some examples to understand. Imbibition, only the definition. You may mark the definition in your textbook also. What is the definition of imbibition? Read out the definition of imbibition.
Movement is between the cell wall and the cell membrane.
Always the movement is, it is concentrating also between the cell wall and the cell membrane. It is moving also, transporting also from this space to the next cell in this space only. So the migration will be this way only, never being a component of the cell cytoplasm or the sac. Read definition.
Migration is a phenomenon that leaves the living or the dead plant cells on top of the surface.
Underline, all of you have to remember the definition and certain examples that I talked about. So imbibition is the process by which dead or living plant cells absorb water by surface attraction, because the imbibitional force generates, develops, and this is how the movement happens. Features, I already told you, this water never becomes a component of the cell sac and cytoplasm, always travels between in the space between the cell wall and the cell membrane. उसी space में circulate होता रहता है, move होता है, ठीक है?
There is no suction force that is concentration.
हाँ, कोई suction force इसमें है ही नहीं, nothing it works. हाँ, so this is the first one, imbibition. What is the next we are going to talk about? The next that we are going to talk about, simple. You already come across this concept, diffusion. I'll give you some examples. You try to frame your definitions. Now, I talk about I'm talking about diffusion right now. What is diffusion? Now, in the concept of diffusion, I may think of, say, suppose I talk about a beaker. In this beaker, I take water. What about this beaker? In this beaker, I take water. Now, when I take water in both the beakers, and इसमें what am I dropping? I'm dropping some colored ink, some drops of ink. So, जैसे ही मैंने drops of ink इसमें डाला, what will happen? The ink droplets will all settle down at the bottom of the beaker or the tumbler. इसमें मैंने क्या किया? I had taken some sugar cubes and I have dropped them. The moment I drop this sugar cubes, what will happen? The sugar cubes will all settle at the bottom of the container. Now, in this one, I took water in the beaker and I dropped some ink. The moment I drop them, is the entire water pink in color or red in color?
In the moment when you drop.
ये है मेरा beaker, यहाँ तक पानी है. What I did now is I put some 5 drops of ink, red ink. Now that I put 5 drops of the ink, immediately I get to see that the ink drops getting settled down at the bottom. The water of the entire beaker, did it take the red color now? No. But in 2-3 minutes time, I get to see that the color is developing. यहाँ पे some pink color develops. So now the pink color is now as if the colored molecules are moving up. Moving up. After some time I will stir. When I stir, I get to see that yes, now the entire beaker has taken up the light pink or the red color. So when I waited for the last 1 minute, what happened? I got to see that yes, from this region, as in the pink or the red colored ink molecules, they were moving. So initially, I knew that there are water molecules and ink molecules जो था, ink molecules सब concentrated था at the bottom. After some time, these molecules started moving between the water molecules, and this is the reason why the entire beaker had taken up the color. Can you tell me What is that feature you come across here? Are there two types of molecules I'm showing you? I'm talking about the water molecules and the ink molecules of the ink. Are these molecules of the ink moving from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration? Yes. But यहाँ पे कोई membrane है? Am I talking about any membrane, semi-permeable, etc., nothing. Rather, the molecules are in direct contact. The water and the ink in direct contact. Let us talk about this. I take this beaker of water, drop some sugar cubes. When I drop the sugar cubes, immediately I taste water from here. Sweet hai? Absolutely not. After 2 minutes, what I get to see is, yes, now it is sweet. As if the molecules of sugar start moving up and it is all getting dissolved. After some 2-3 minutes, when I taste the water from here, it is faintly sweet. अब मैंने stir किया, what will happen? Initially, what was happening? The sugar molecules moving from a region of high to a region of low. The sugar molecules were moving in between the water molecules. अब जब मैंने stir किया, the distribution is even. पूरा water sweet हो गया. So what is common in both these things? I'm talking about solids, I'm talking about liquids. What is the common feature that I'm talking about? Movement of the molecules from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration. So I'm talking about movement of some liquid molecules and I'm talking about movement of some solid molecules. To talk about diffusion, only solid and liquid, no, that will not be enough to describe the method. We have to also think of some gaseous molecules. How can we think of gaseous molecules moving from a region of high concentration to lower concentration? Correct. You are spraying your body spray. You apply body spray. But maybe now your mother sitting in the other room also, she will get the smell. So when we are talking about any such examples like this, your mother cooking food in the kitchen, but sitting in the hall, you get the smell. You get the smell. Incense stick, burning of the incense stick. So whenever we are talking about any such example like this, what's happening? The molecules of the gases also moving from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration. The molecules of these gases also start distributing between the molecules of the gases in the room. So now, if I talk about the movement of solids and liquids and gases from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration, can I talk about this as diffusion? Yes, provided the molecules are in direct contact. Then what is one difference between diffusion and osmosis?
Water molecule.
For osmosis, we only have to talk about water. For diffusion, we can talk about molecules of all types of substances, solids also, liquids also, gases also. What is the direction of movement? Movement is always from a region of high to a region of low. Same for diffusion and osmosis. Correct? So when we are talking about a similarity, right, one point of similarity and difference between diffusion and osmosis. We will do this question, Nico. Write one similarity and difference between diffusion and osmosis. Notebook. Write one difference and similarity. Similarity also you should know, difference also you should know as per the questions in your paper. Write one similarity and difference between osmosis and diffusion. No, notebook. You have to write proper answers. Unless and until you write proper answers, you will not get good marks. Proper answers लिखना है. Similarity. What is the similarity? First point you write. Similarity. Write down the first one. Under similarity, what will you write? What did I tell you just now? movement. So you may get difference between osmosis diffusion. So similarity क्या है? Molecules are moving from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration. लिखो. Be very fast. Prompt बनो. Fast. लिखो. Chapter name लिखो. Question answers enough you'll have to write so that you are well versed. Any question I am able to write it properly. Basic knowing the concept and putting on the paper, two different things. Unless and until you put in the paper properly, you will not get marks. No, नीचे क्यों? नहीं, desk में लिखो. How can you be comfortable like that?
School में वैसे
Similarity लिखा. So what is the similarity? Movement of molecules always from a region of high to low. अभी difference क्या लिखेंगे? Applicable for diffusion, applicable for molecules of solids, liquids and gases. Solids, liquids and gases. Osmosis only for water molecules. Osmosis only for water molecules.
Cannot be any other liquid for osmosis.
Osmosis, no. Liquid molecules, majorly water molecules. Solvent molecules, sometimes depending on the tonicity. Based on the tonicity, we cannot generalize. But water molecules always.
But I am not sure if that counts as an example. When we breathe, we just take in oxygen. बाकी air भी थोड़ा तो जाता है उसमें.
जाता है.
But then absorb तो selectively होगा.
क्या?
Does that count as an example? या वो भी diffusion में है?
You are breathing. You are inhaling any type of air that is, any type of gases that is there in the air. Now that we are breathing, the air that goes inside our lungs, only the oxygen component goes to the blood. बाकी जो सारे gases है, during the process of exhalation, all will come out. Only oxygen will go to the blood. ये diffusion हो गया. From the blood, it will go to the body tissues. ये भी diffusion हो गया. And the carbon dioxide will come from the body tissues, blood में, blood से lungs में. ये भी diffusion. If you are asking that बाकी gases का क्या होना है, we don't have any system for other gases to let their entry directly into our body cells. Like we breathe in nitrogen also, but वो nitrogen exhalation के time पे as it is निकल के आ जाता है. Then nitrogen will not enter into the blood and the body tissue. Though we need so much of nitrogen for our cells.
No, but then it is specifically absorbing oxygen itself.
Only.
Yeah. So does that count as osmosis?
नहीं. ऑक्सीजन तो गैस हो गया, इसमें ऑस्मोसिस में गैसेस इन्वॉल्व है ही नहीं. डिफ्यूजन
कंसंट्रेशन होता है कि हायर
किसने बोला? I talk about you are inhaling the air. Now that you are inhaling the air, lungs always has a higher concentration of oxygen as compared to the blood surrounding the lungs. Alveolus के surrounding जो भी blood है, this you have studied in the 9th. तो ये question पूछा कैसे? So surrounding the lungs, blood में oxygen concentration is always less. So that's the reason lungs से oxygen blood की तरफ जाता है, high concentration to low concentration. Again, when I am comparing the blood and the body tissues में oxygen कम है, blood में ज़्यादा है. So oxygen is moving from the blood to the body tissues. So carbon dioxide के जैसे for carbon dioxide the story is just the opposite. In our body tissues, the tissues and the cells and the blood, no concentration of molecules and ions are different. That's the reason the movement. Okay. So now we are talking about what we finished writing down the difference and the similarity.
And also write semi-permeable membrane is present.
For I'm sorry. For difference, one point you have written which molecules.
Yeah.
Second difference you will write for osmosis. Semi-permeable membrane is involved.
For
Osmosis. Semi-permeable membrane is involved. लिखो. Question लिखा, answer कौन लिखेगा देव? Very specific in your answers. अगर full on full marks मिलना है, you have to write good answers. नहीं तो possible नहीं है. Semi-permeable membrane is involved in osmosis, and for diffusion, molecules are in nay. For diffusion, molecules are in direct contact. In diffusion, molecules are in direct contact.
For a like cell wall, mostly through diffusion is possible because it's a freely permeable. So that can also count in diffusion. That is diffusion.
When I talk about osmosis, I can say that osmosis is the diffusion of water molecule. आया समझ में? Osmosis can be defined as diffusion of water molecule. But when I say anything else, can I say osmosis is the movement of solute and mineral from the soil to the cell? No. Though the cell wall is freely permeable, now that you are writing about diffusion, the theory always is if the molecules are in direct contact and if the migration is from a region of high to low, then only that is diffusion. So, but yes, if I talk about gases moving through the membranes of a cell, that also has to be considered as diffusion. But now you are writing down the standard definitions.
I mean osmosis, if you have two different gradients separated by a semi-permeable membrane.
Two?
Only one beaker, there are two solutions separated by semi-permeable membrane. One with a lot of salt and one with less salt. So, does water move or does salt move?
Water moves. Only water will move. You have to come across.
Salt will settle down or
I have got two solutions here. We'll just wind up with this. I have got two solutions here. I am able to separate them with the help of a semi-permeable membrane. यहाँ पे dilute solution है, यहाँ पे concentrated solution है. Will the water move or the solute move? Only the water will move from a dilute to a concentrated area. Will the solute move? No. Solute will not move. आया समझ में? Next class we are going to start with osmosis, types and the experiments on osmosis. Okay.
higher concentration to lower concentration. अब एम में एक बार से ऐड कर देना. क्रॉस की concentration gradient दोनों में ऐड कर. until equilibrium is
मैंने सोच दिया एक अच्छा है
अच्छा हो जाता है.
मैंने भी सुना है सर्दी से
सर्दी आ जाती है.
हमें सर्दी निकलने नहीं चाहते. सर्दी ऐसी हो जाती है
इसमें हायर कॉन्सेंट्रेशन किसका है? मॉडल में नहीं, इसमें किसी चीज से इसमें ये एग्जांपल में उसका है ना इंक का.
इसमें
तो इंक जिधर ज्यादा होगा उससे वो ना उस जगह पे है.
शेयर ड्यूरेस को कर
पर कैसे
मेरा शेयर ड्यूरेस हो गया हिंदी का, लेकिन मैं इस तरह तरीके से प्रैक्टिस कर रहा था. शेयर ड्यूरेस का करेक्ट सेंस पता है. शेयर ड्यूरेस यूपी में हार्ड और से सलीका नहीं से